Welcome to the Writer Reads A Planet's Ransom. This is Chapter 7, My Pod is a Nanny in Disguise. As it was, I did end up spending the night alone. By the time I got back to the pod, it was almost dark. I couldn't work out if that was just because I was in a forest or if it was really that close to night, so I went to the edge and looked out. The slope below was crawling with shadow. Really that close to night, huh? Well, who'd have thought? Pod, close, I ordered, after sticking the Viran bushes on one corner of the floor. Nothing happened. Pod, close, I repeated, and tapped my foot. Remove all vegetation from the pod, the computer informed me. Why? Security cannot be maintained with vegetation inside the pod. Why? Information has been highlighted on your terminal. Fine. I picked up the Viran bushes and dumped them over the side. When something with gleaming blue highlights shot out from the branches, I shoved it over the side with my boot and then checked to make sure there were no more uninvited guests. I really didn't want the pod to stay open all night. Something about the way those shadows had moved on the slope below struck me as wrong. When I found nothing more, I cast a glance out over the valley and noticed a shadow rising from the hillside. Pod, close, I said, and was more than relieved when I felt the breeze stop blowing. I sat down on the edge of the sleeping platform and the computer chimed. What? Review your day and report, the computer ordered. I have to admit my first response was to give it a piece of my mind. I was tired, I was sore, and I was hungry. And then I remembered the chocolate, and I wondered if there'd be more. Fine, I said, and moved to sit down and watch the screen. Have to admit, I didn't feel like watching the last 6 hours, but the computer had that sorted as well. It fast-framed until something of interest came up. At first that was a lot. I made it stop so I could identify the trees and plants near the camp, and it stopped to highlight every other new plant I'd passed on the way up the slope. I started to be disappointed that I hadn't seen as many animals. I mean, I had to be slaying that first xenobiology task, and there'd be a reward. As soon as I thought it, I felt embarrassed. Here I was, mocking the Evanach for making this like a dumb computer game, and here it was, actually working. Smart Alex, I murmured, and the screen froze. At first I thought I was about to be punished for pseudo-swearing, and then I realized the screen had stopped to focus on the thorn trees. To my surprise, the computer spoke. Verify. What? Confirm sighting. Ah, yeah, well, it's on the recording, isn't it? So no one said I had to be nice about it. Advancing timeline. What do you mean, advancing timeline? Your training will be accelerated. Scans show advanced knowledge is required for your survival. You mean you didn't know about those things? Affirmative. Didn't you, check before you dropped defenseless people down here? Affirmative. Then how come you didn't know? Planetary survey teams did not encounter this life form in this area. You are the first to catalogue it here. Go me. Negative. I felt the blood drain from my face and a cold lump forming in my chest. What do you mean, negative? Advanced training must be completed before you may be released. What do you mean? Advanced training must be completed before you may leave the pod a second time. You can't be serious! Okay, so I know I was shouting at a machine. It is essential you complete advanced training prior to release. No way! That is correct. There is no way to leave until the advanced training has been successfully completed. You may begin whenever you are ready. I watched as the screen spun and faded, and then stared as a panel slid away beside it to reveal a second screen. The ledge holding the keyboard extended to become a desk, and a second panel opened. I was about to comment on this when one of the sidewalls made a series of clicking sounds and the pod shifted on its platform. Do not panic. Sensors confirm craft stability. I closed my mouth. There was one final lurch and a door seam appeared in the wall. Survival level 4 access granted, the computer intoned. I couldn't resist. I had to see what that meant. A bathroom? I exclaimed after peering inside. Survival level 4 gives me a bathroom. Correct. And what hoops did I have to jump through in order to get that? Relevant tasks are listed on the survival screen. You will need to complete them once you have regained outside access. But how am I supposed to do that? By completing the advanced training. And how am I supposed to complete the advanced training if I don't do the basics? Basic training merely equips you for basic survival tasks on this world. Advanced training gives you colonial skills necessary for developing civilization. And how long does it normally take to reach that? Basic training usually takes a full planetary orbit. A year! I exclaimed. It takes a whole year? Affirmative. And how long does advanced training take? Advanced training can take 5 orbits. 5 orbits! I screamed. I couldn't help it. The thought of being locked up in the pod for 5 whole years was unbearable. You're going to lock me in here for 5 whole years? Negative. You can't possibly, I started, and then registered the computer's response and felt immediately calmer. You're not? Negative. Why not? The advanced training you require only requires proficiency in medical procedures for identification and treatment of venom. Equipment will be required. You must know how to operate it. And how's that supposed to help if I get bit out there? Emergency procedures to enable your return are part of the training. Let's get started then, I said. Negative. Negative? What do you mean, negative? You are in need of nutrition, cleaning, and rest. But you're going to keep me locked up until the course is complete. Affirmative. So I want to start now. Negative. But why? You are in need of nutrition, cleaning, and rest. There was no point arguing with it, so I stopped. I had a bathroom. I went and did the cleaning thing. By the time I stepped out, I discovered another small panel in the wall of my pod. A small round light had gone green beside a button, so I pressed it and was rewarded with a tray of food. Don't think I can't see what you're doing, I said, taking the tray and sitting down at the computer desk. Giving you appropriate nutrition, the computer replied, but I was too busy eating to be bothered saying anything in reply. When I was finished, I set my tray back in the slot that had delivered it and went and washed my hands. Right, I said, crossing to the screens and seating myself before them. Let's start the training. Negative. You are still in need of rest. I am capable of doing a little study before I go to sleep, I countered, determined to at least start on the work needed. The computer was silent. It was silent for so long that I was about to protest when the screens changed. At first I was afraid they'd go blank and remain that way, but they didn't. The screen on the right to the original 4-panel arrangement showed the exploration, survival, xenobiology, and community squares. That's not advanced training, I said. Correct, the computer replied. So what am I supposed to do with that? I asked. Complete the day's tasks. Explain. Finish your report, the computer responded, and returned to the screen showing the scorpion spiders in the thorn trees. So I did. I went through the final sequences, identifying the colonies of spider scorpions as thorn scorpions. Why not spiders? The computer inquired. At least that was an easy question to answer. Because there aren't any webs, I told it. There can't be spiders if there are no webs. The computer was silent, as though digesting what I'd said, and then it replied. Further investigation required, it said. Your colloquial designation is accepted. We tried zooming in on the moving shadows on the lower slopes, but the light hadn't been strong enough for any kind of identification, so the computer moved on to the bluey-black beetle that had dropped out of the viran bushes. Identify, it said. No idea, I told it. Some kind of beetle. Further verification will be required. I know, I said. Now can we get on with the advanced training? Negative, the computer said. Now you must verify the tasks assigned in basic training that you have managed to complete so far. With a sigh, I touched the exploration screen. To my surprise, the top of the ridge was a mile out, and today's wandering and the report I'd just gone through with the computer counted towards completion. There was a rattle in the drawer that had delivered me my first set of equipment. And chocolate. More chocolate? I wondered, and glanced down. The light next to the touch panel for opening the drawer was yellow. I guess that meant it wasn't ready to be opened, but I tried anyway. "Well, that's no surprise," I said, when the drawer refused to budge. I went back to the screen. I touched Survival next, and was glad to see a tick beside the task of gathering tamska bark and bush. More rattles occurred in the bin at the base of the sleeping platform. Cool, I thought, hoping for more chocolate. Xenobiology came next, and I discovered I had completed the plant requirements, for more rattles, but not quite all of the animal ones. It came as no surprise that the thorn scorpions weren't in the database, but I did manage to find the bluey-black Vuran beetle. Lucky I'd moved it with my booted foot. Those things had large mandibles, and they were known to bite. I made a note to be more careful about collecting Vuran bushes in the future. I didn't like to think of what might have happened if that thing had crawled up my arm while I'd been carrying the Vuran back to the camp. Community was the last panel. I touched it, and it refused to open, so I touched it again. Still no action. Task denied, the computer said, just as the same message flashed up onto the screen. Why? I asked. Do you have other tasks that need completion first? Great. So now can I get to the advanced training? The computer didn't respond straight away, but the rewards drawer pinged, so I bent down to open it. Sure enough, inside were another 6 squares of chocolate. When I straightened up after retrieving them, the left-hand screen showed a new panel. The new panel was titled Security. Security, huh? I remembered the computer promising that information had been highlighted on my terminal. Remembered asking it why security could not be maintained while vegetation was in the pod. The Vuran beetle had provided part of the answer. I guess the new panel would provide the rest. Well, no surprise there. The panel did provide the rest of the answer. It wasn't something I'd wanted to know, and I looked out at the darkened trees and bushes with a wariness I hadn't had before. At least now I knew how to finish the rest of the xenobiology tasks without going more than 5 steps from the front door. At the end of the presentation there was a quiz. I had to pass it each day for a week. It's not like I've got anything else to do, I grumbled, as I watched the screen revert to the security panel and then fly over to join the other 4 panels on the original screen. Fantastic! Now I had another subject to get through each day. Now can I start on the advanced training? I think the computer might have had a better response to that question if I hadn't yawned halfway through. As it was, both screens went out and the lights in the pod dimmed. Negative. You need to rest now. You may commence advanced training after you have reviewed your new basic training tasks in the morning. Well, thank you very much, I said. You are very welcome, the computer replied. Lights will cease to function in 5 minutes. You must prepare for sleep. I didn't want to know what it would do if I wasn't in bed by the time the lights went out, and I didn't want to discover that the hard way, so I started getting ready for bed. Hey, I said after I'd started to get undressed. Where are my pajamas? To my surprise, a drawer slid open. Inside it were several carefully packaged sets of clothes. New underwear, socks, outdoor clothing like I'd woken up in, a set of pajamas, and a pair of slippers. Are you for real? I asked, picking up the slippers. It is impractical to wear boots while inside, the computer responded, or to go barefoot. Slippers are ideal indoor footwear. You have 2 minutes to the end of light. 2 minutes. I was in my pajamas, with my teeth brushed and climbing under the covers that had been in another compartment at the head of the sleeping platform, when the lights went out. And I mean completely out. There wasn't a single glow anywhere, and I'd expected some. I lay still and stared out at the dark, wondering if I should tell the computer that humans tended to feel safer when they could cover their windows to the outside world. In the end, I decided not to bother. Maybe I could get used to looking out as I drifted off. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed today's reading, please hit like. If you'd like to hear more, please hit subscribe. And I'll check you later. Take care out there.